My name is Dr. Penn, and my practice is Pinpoint Chiropractic. It's 3608 Galley Road, Colorado Springs, Colorado, 80909. And of course, I have office hours, and that's, you can talk to me about that later. But I was given the honor, and it's always an honor anytime I get to speak, because for a long time people would tell me that I never had anything to say. And I always seem to think that I did, but I got one more thing to say. So I really appreciate Cynthia. She said, well, when are you going to come and speak at my place? And I was like, I don't know. We could put a date on it. So we agreed to this date. And she said, well, what are you going to talk about? I said, I'm going to talk about water and sympathetic dominance. And why that is so important, I will share and unfold as we talk more about this. But I went to chiropractic school. I went to Parker University in Dallas, Texas. And towards the end of our learning, we started taking like ancillary classes. I don't want to say classes that don't matter, but they weren't full-fledged chiropractic courses. And one day turned into a whole trimester, and we're learning about water. And I say, like to my group of friends, who cares? We get it, because I was a chemistry major too, and we had to learn about water there. And I said, who cares? We get it. You got the charcoal, you have the sand, you have the rocks, it filters through, you get clean water. I was like, if I wanted to learn all that, then I would have went to school to be a civil engineer like my brother. But I didn't. I'm a chiropractor. What difference does it make about all this water? But I don't know about for you guys, but growing up, we only had tap water. It wasn't later on until the 90s that we actually had bottled water. And then the 2000s, some people were drinking in the 90s, some people were drinking tap water, and some people were drinking bottled water. And then it got progressive. And then now we can't live without bottled water, right? And so I didn't realize the waters could be like beer, or water could be like champagne, depending on the grade of water that you drink. And I'm not talking about Perrier mineral water and those types of upscaled waters. I'm talking about, I'm going hiking, what water do I need to drink? Or I'm taking a shower, what water I need to put on my body. So when I returned to Colorado, because this is my third time offender, I still got altitude sickness, which was really odd to me. I didn't realize how it would affect me, because 2 years prior to that, I had been in Mexico, and the altitude is higher. And I didn't know that. In Mexico City, the altitude is higher. And so all my friends said, you need to drink water, right? Drink water. And then my friend says, you need to drink alkaline water. It'll change your life. And I said, where's this water? So we went to Sprouts. Where's this water that's going to change my life, And it did. It helped. It helped me not be sick, because if anybody who's known me for 5 minutes, well, maybe an hour, they know that I'm not a person who lets dust kick under my feet. So I want to go. And it seemed to be that I was laying in bed more than going. And that was a big agitation for my personality. So that alkaline water did help. And I was like, okay, all right, I'm back on track. And so as it was suggested to me, I started drinking more alkaline water and buying it from the store. I had not yet been involved in serial networking. I'll just call it serial networking. And later on, when I did get into serial networking, that's how I met Cynthia. And it was a little bit of touch and go and tag your it in trying to meet her, which should always be a sign to me. When it's kind of touch and go and tag your it, then there has to be a weighted importance of it in a different plane and a higher understanding. And she's like, come and do a one-on-one with me. And I was like, oh, all right. There had been some communication problems. So I was like, I'm not real sure how this is going to work. Okay, we'll see. And then I did. And when I did, she did this lovely demonstration that made me so excited because I was a chemistry major. And it became very apparent to me the very importance of water. And so this is actually where the presentation starts off. That was just some background information. And so her presentation was amazing to me because she was actually, have you guys had this presentation?
Sort of, kind of.
Okay. In this presentation, these are basically the waters that you would drink, right? You know, who drinks Essentia water? That's what I drank to change my life when I returned here for the third time. Or I was an Aquafina person, you know, so she had all these different waters and soda. It was really funny because she said, if you drink that amount of Sprite, how much water do you think that you'll need to drink to make your body alkaline? You said 3 of those? And I think I said a gallon. I said a gallon. She was like right on it. I was like, wow, that's kind of cool, right? So, so that had made me really excited because she had poured each of those in. She did the litmus test or she did the drop test. We would call it the litmus test way back in the day. And those showed you the different degrees of alkaline or the different degrees of acid, right? And I was just like, oh, wow, this is so exciting, you know. It was like a chemistry experiment for me. But what was most important about that was when you drink these waters, they're fortified. So the one thing that I learned in nutrition, not chiropractic nutrition, regular nutrition, I'll say common nutrition, is when anything is fortified, it has additives. And so when you have additives, unlike a natural food, if you eat a peach, your body says, you're eating a peach. And the body automatically becomes like a computer. This is a peach. This is the nutritional value in it. This is what's in it. Okay, this is what I do with this nutrition. This is what I need with this. This goes to this part of the body. This goes to this part of the, you know. And the liver's like, okay, yeah, I recognize this. This is like a real whole food. So what I learned about nutrition is that what I learned about nutrition when I was taking it before I was a chiropractor is that the fortified food is a type of food, and when your body breaks it down, it goes through your nervous system, it goes through your intestinal tract, and it goes through your mouth, it goes blah, 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 it gets to your stomach, it does whatever it does, and then it gets to your intestinal tract. And then in your intestinal tract, what happens is water separates in one part, and then substance separates in another part. And then the liver has to determine what happens to the substance and what happens to the water particles. Not H2O, but actually what's in our water. So, the ancient mariner says he's on a raft by himself and he's surrounded by the ocean water and he's dying of thirst, and he's parched, and the sun blistering his skin, and his lips are blistered, and he says to the albatross, water, water everywhere, but not a drop to drink, right? Mm-hmm. That's what he says. And so in a day and age like today, we're faced with the very same thing. There's water everywhere, and we wonder which drop to drink. So this is what made me really excited about this presentation, because I understand the liver. I got to put my glasses down, getting warmed up, Bobby. Anything that we put in our mouth, our liver has to decide what happens to it. When our liver decides what happens to it, if it is profitable for the body, it accepts it. And if it is not profitable for the body, the liver wishes to get rid of it. And if the liver can't get rid of it, then it builds a toxicity in our body. When the body builds a toxicity in it, then the central nervous system has to decide, do I rest and relax, or am I in fight and flight? And if our bodies are sharp enough, clean enough, pure enough, it'll say I can rest and digest. But because of the community and the societies that we live in, I talk specifically about America, we eat a lot of industrial foods. And we eat a lot of fortified foods. And we drink a lot of fortified drinks. And we drink a lot of fortified water. So when we drink these waters, if I'm going to have the Sprite that's on the end, which is fortified, it's fortified with citric acid. So citric acid automatically makes it acidic. So when I drink it, and I'm already on the balance of having an alkaline, if my blood really is where it should be, it's more alkaline than acidic. But when I overcome my system with acid, then it changes the pH of balance of my blood and my cellular fluids, interstitial and existential. So when that happens, then my body's susceptible to everything. Not just anything, everything. It's susceptible to disease. It's susceptible to parasites. It's susceptible to sickness, to tiredness. And so what the central nervous system does is it makes a decision. And it says, I am no longer in rest and rejuvenate. And it says, now I'm in fight and flight. Because what the body's trying to do is get back to balance. It's always trying to get back to balance. It is the war between itself. And so in the war between itself, it goes to sympathetic dominance. And sympathetic dominance is when you are in continual fight and flight. So if your body never goes, okay, I had the Sprite, but the rest of my diet, 80%, is alkaline, and my blood is alkaline, and my intestinal tract, 7.2 to 7.4, is alkaline, I'm in good standing. But many people aren't in good standing. So what happens is, instead of using fight and flight for running from a bear when I'm doing the Manitou Springs incline, now I'm in fight and flight when I'm just sitting, which makes no sense, right? And it doesn't make any sense because that's not what the body's supposed to do. Fight and flight is really only for blood rushing events. I'm trying to preserve my life, or I'm at my peak of enjoyment, or I am
in agony in the last 7 steps.
And I'm in agony in the last 7 steps. And then my adrenals kick in and they tell me you can do more and you can go more and you can go further. That's what the fight and flight is for. So a few things happen with fight and flight as we get into sympathetic dominance. It shuts down some organs. So some people might say, I'm anxious all the time and I can't poo. Well, that goes hand in hand, because when you're anxious, you're in sympathetic dominance with the toxins in your body, with the medicines that you take, with just the air that you breathe. If you're not detoxing and doing all of those things, you guys are probably wondering how we're going to get to water. We're going to get to water. And then what happens is we stay in that. I got to get my kids to school. I got to go to this networking meeting. I got this business. My check bounced. I got to meet so-and-so. And then we have this list of obligations. And then we go up more in dominance. And we think, if I could just get an 8-hour night sleep, I'll be good, right? But the whole day, so you have 24 hours in a day. So you mean to tell me 16 hours of this was fight and flight. 5 to 6 days a week, sometimes 7, sometimes 8 days a week, the Beatles would say. And we never get back to rest and relaxation, especially we as women.
And in the Western culture.
And in the Western culture. In the 30s, we were insequential. When war came, it changed forever because men were at war and women had to go to work. And then in the 40s, we tried to kind of get some normalcy back. In the 50s, things were a little bit better. June, Ward, the Beaver, right? And now she's at home and I'm taking care of everybody, and that was the personification. Then the 60s came and it changed forever, ever, right? We're burning bras, we're not wearing any, and we're doing more work, we're demanding rights. These are women, we're demanding rights. I want the same right he has, I want the same responsibilities, and then our lives change forever as women. And when that happened, we saw more sickness. We saw more sickness in women. We saw just more disease proliferate. Of course, there was the 60s where we're doing some drugs, so of course we're a little off text, And then life progressed from there, and it became very, very sympathetic dominant. We became a sympathetic dominant society because we had goals to reach. We wanted to be like men for women. Men were traveling because traveling was big then, and this industry was really big. So they had a different type of sympathetic dominance because they weren't sleeping in beds at home. They were traveling a lot. They were eating out a lot. They, not good diets, and they had a different type of sympathetic dominance. But I'm just saying, in general, it wasn't just one part of society. It was the whole society. And so disease becomes prevalent because when you're in fight and flight, what your body can't do is accept nutrition. And when it can't accept nutrition, it can't get in balance. And when it can't get in balance, then you can get disease. So now that we know all that, let's talk about this water. It's good old water. Everybody got some? Good. Cheers. So I laid a little bit of a foundation about fortified water. And I talked a little bit about what the digestive system does, what the liver does, how we get to sympathetic dominance, what's so important about this water, and why is it going to change our lives. Well, I'll tell you my personal story, and then we'll get more into that. Before I drank this water, when I was 17 years old, I had mononucleosis. To those who know what that is, the kissing thing. To those who are professionals, Epstein-Barr virus. But Epstein-Barr virus doesn't ever leave your body. You just get over it. Get over it. That's our thing, right? Get over it, Holly. Get over it, Cynthia. Get over it, Bobby. Get over it.
You can't.
But it stays in your body. And so when I was 30, that was when I was 17. When I was 34, I went to an iridologist. He told me everything that was wrong with me by looking at my eyeball. And from the time that I was 17 until the time I was 34, I had boils. It started out being 1 a year, then it was 2 a year, then it was 3 a year, then it was every time I had my menstrual cycle, and then it was for years. So of course, for some women, they hate menstrual cycles because they get cramps. I hated one because I knew I was going to have this boil that would come up and it would just invade my life. Then the guy said, clean your intestinal tract, right? I was like, okay. I wasn't a chiropractor then, wasn't thinking about being one. I'm just going to take this eyeball guy and do what he says, and I did, and they went away. Then I got to chiropractor school. I was 40. My hormones changed. I still had Epstein virus in my system, and I ate horrible, and I drank bottled water. And they came back. So I said, I'm going to go vegan because it must be the meat. It must be the cheese. I mean, I was like calling roll call. It's this, it's this, it's that, it's this, it's this. And I still had them. to the point it was so bad that it was just a horseshoe. And every time I had my cycle, I was like, here we go. People were like, well, you have herpes. I was like, no, I don't. Knock it off, right? And I came here and I talked to a couple of practitioners. I heard what they said. I said, blah, 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 because that's how I am as a patient. Because I know on the inside of me, like every one of you knows on the inside of you, what's right and what's wrong. Somebody tell you something like, that's not right. If it bears with you, you say, okay. And so up to this time, I had been drinking bottled water. And I didn't know a difference. I was like everybody else. It's alkaline. It makes sense. I drink it. It's supposed to help me. It has sodium bicarbonate in it. It has magnesium in it. It has some other minerals in it. And it's good for you, right? Wrong. Because this is what happens when you drink bottled water. Then it goes through your whole system, and it gets past the stomach, small intestine, goes to the large intestine where all the water is, and then the liver wakes up and says, hey, that's not like real water. It says, oh, it has sodium bicarbonate. Dump it. It has magnesium in it. Dump it. Like, we don't need that. So let's get rid of it. Kidneys, do your job. It goes through a little filtration system, and when we buy it, it's alkaline. When we put it in our mouth, it changes, and it's no longer alkaline. Because because of the filtering process, and the liver says, it has too many minerals in it that we don't need, dump it. I said, yeah, that's exactly what the liver does. And so I was like, Kangen water. She's like, try it. I tried it. I was like, okay. She's like, I'm going to give you some. I said, okay. And I took it home. And I was a person who stayed bloated all the time. I had gas all the time. My best friend said, you've had gas ever since I've known you. So that was like 23. I was 23 and I had gas. And I drank this water and I sat in silence. I sat in silence. My stomach wasn't rumbling. It wasn't bloated. And I thought, oh my God, I got to have more of this water. Being a scientist, it absolutely made sense to me. I was like, yeah, this is exactly what the liver does. And then she's like, well, this is how it stays ionized. It's not fortified. One way you can ionize a thing, it is ionized through metals. I was like, of course. I was like, yes, this is so wonderful. I know you guys like it's not that wonderful, but it is, because it charges the water. So maybe this might make some of you excited, maybe it won't. When I was a little girl, well, I wasn't a little girl, but when I was old enough to do this, I would take the D battery. Does everybody know what the D battery looks like? It's square, right? It has two sides. Do you remember? One is the round side, and one is the charged side, right? And you would put it to your tongue, and it'll go, and you're like, oh, that's salty.
I didn't do that. Yeah, I never did that.
Oh, well, this is my story. I said, oh, it's salty. Well, when it was salty was when it was alkaline. So that's what those plates do. They charge the water to make it salty or alkaline. And when we drink it, it goes straight to our blood system. And it goes straight to our intra and extracellular cells, and it revives them. Isn't that wonderful? It's marvelous. Why is that important? Because if we drink Sprite, if we drink Coke, we all know the story of Coke. If you need to clean your toilet, put Coke in it. If you need to clean your battery, put Coke on it. If you need to get rid of kidney stones, drink Coke. If, bathroom, soap scum. And we drink this. Yeah. And it clearly says, it all but says, you're drinking acid. But it says you're drinking phosphoric acid, right? You're drinking phosphoric acid. So think about the people who drink a gallon or two of those a day. Their bodies are now acidic and they're susceptible to any kind of disease. We call it helicopter bacteria, but it's what gives you an ulcer. It's not really helicopter, but it gives you an ulcer. And everything about our system now goes from being in the balance of having an alkaline system to now being more acidic in some parts than others. But the whole system is supposed to be just a little bit alkaline. So when we drink this water, our liver doesn't have to work as hard. And so we've talked about this love affair that the thyroid and the liver have. They have a love affair. They're married, actually. You know, she says, "What are you doing down there, liver?" He says, "This is what I'm doing." "What are you doing up there, girl?" And she's like, "This is what I'm doing." And then every once in a while, when the liver's like, she's like, "What are you doing down there, liver?" And he doesn't answer. She's like, "Oh, are you ignoring me?" And she goes and she has this love affair with the adrenal glands. And she was like, "Well, he won't pay me any mind, so I'm going to go over here and find these adrenals, and they're going to give me the attention that I want." Because the thyroid, it regulates your body. And when it doesn't get the homeostasis that it needs, it has to depend on something else. So what else would it depend on? The adrenals. Why do you say the adrenals? Because the adrenals put us in fight and flight. It's like, "Oh, I got you, girl. Yeah, your man's not working down there. Let me figure this out for you. Let's put you in fight and flight. Let's take you on a journey." And that's what happens. We drink this water and it begins detoxing right away. It starts with the acids. Let's get rid of all the acid, right? Let's make it balanced. And then after we do that, let's get rid of all the gas. Gets rid of all the gas. And then the liver wakes up and it's like, hey, girl, what you doing up there? And she's like, "Oh, you back," right? And now we're back online, right? Now we're back into our regular relationship. And then we're not bloated, so guess what we get to do? We get to poo. Yay for pooing, right? Because why is pooing so important? It's because when you're in sympathetic dominance, your body holds on to poo. It holds everything. It initially will get rid of everything it needs to get rid of. But then after that, it holds on to it after long proportions of time. And so this water, it does that. Now we've pooed, and now our liver is like, "Oh, detox, awesome. I'm not drunk in toxicity anymore. Now I can perform at a level that is optimal," right? And when I could perform at a level that is optimal, then I could send the right signals. And when I could send the right signals, then everything's getting nutrients. Everything gets nutrients. And so the nervous system says, I could send the right signals. Adrenals, get back in line. Liver, high five. Thyroid, don't do that again. Brain, central nervous system, buoyancy. And then everything begins to work like clockwork, right? All this comes from water. Not the same water as the ancient mariner who says water, water everywhere and not a drop to drink, but the water that gives your brain buoyancy. So when we're dehydrated and we don't have enough water, we don't have buoyancy in our brain. Then we say, "I have a headache." You know, if that happens, then we're not sending signals. We're not making the electric signals that we're supposed to be able to send out to everything. And then we go back into fight and flight. And if we stay in fight and flight too long, then we go into sympathetic dominance. And when we go into sympathetic dominance, it takes us a long time to come off of. It's like a high. It is a high. And then it takes a long time to come off that high because it affects our heart. Because when we're in fight and flight, our pupils dilate. Why? Because we're making sure that we're not in any danger. And then our heartbeat beats fast because we're trying to make sure that the bear is not going to catch us up on the incline. And then our blood pressure goes higher because we think we need to pump more blood, right? And then we hold on to, because now we're in it, we hold on to the poop, then we become toxic, and then we can't function. When you're hydrated, your body has no choice but to take a breath. Can you drink water without taking a breath? Chugging it, right? When you drink water, you have to breathe. You have to, you take water, you're like, you take your sip, and then you're like, that right there, my friends, is parasympathetic rest and rejuvenate. So every time we drink water, we get rejuvenated. But when we drink the right champagne water, Kangen water, that is not fortified, but charged, our body thanks us. It says, thank you. I'm so glad you love me. And then it begins to detox. And then it begins to restore and replenish. And then it begins to heal us. And that is what's so important about this Kangen water as opposed to this fortified water. A charge is different than a fortification. So, sympathetic dominance. Is it clear for you? Yes. Water importance. I come a couple times a week. And not only do I come a couple times a week, I say, Claudine, you need water? She's like, you don't mind, do you? No, I don't mind. My patients come in, they say, I can't, because like, you need this water. Somebody comes in and says, I got blisters on my feet, you need this water. And they come in, they say, I got acne, you need water. And it just becomes all of those things, because when I was a soap maker, I used to go buy distilled water. It is a processed water, and you don't really know how distilled it really is. But when you're ignorant, out of just not knowing, you don't know. You just do the best that you can. But Maya Angelou says that when you know to do better, do better. Right? You guys have any questions? Ma'am.
Could you go back to the boils? What happened with the boils?
Oh, I drank this water. Because I drank that water, but I drank this water. And when I drank this water, I had my water for 2 days. I had these boils for a year and a half. They went away. They were no longer a horseshoe. They were seated. They were no longer a horseshoe. And not only were they a horseshoe, they were a horseshoe that went deep. And then what happened was the left side was the left side and the right side was the right side. And then they receded more. And then they receded more. And then I didn't have one on one side. And then I had kind of one on the other side. And it was still being temperamental. It was holding on for dear life. And I was like, I beseech thee. I rebuke you. And
you put water on it topically?
I did. I put 2.5 water on it topically. And I just put that on there. And then I drank more water. Cheers. And they went away. And now I don't have them. And so when I talk about sympathetic dominance, I open up with telling you that my personal story was 17 years old. I had Epstein-Barr virus. When your body is not balanced, when your body, and mine obviously wasn't, what began to happen was my body began to get out of sympathetic dominance and get out of fight and flight, because that's how it happens. Sympathetic dominance is not the same thing as fight and flight. It is an over-dominance of being in fight and flight perpetually. Got me out of sympathetic dominance, got me out of fight and flight, got me into rest and digest, and then because this is charged now, I wasn't in an acidic lifestyle as far as what I'm eating and what I'm putting in my body. Now I'm more balanced in what my body's doing internally, and it helps kill viruses, because viruses can't live. Technically, viruses can't live. Some viruses can, so it's not a clear across the board all cannot live in 7.2, which is normally what our body would be at. But when it goes below 7.2, which is where viruses love acid. They say, you like wine, more wine. They say, you like Coke, more Coke. They say, you like citric acid, more citric acid. And they welcome it. But it impels your body. And so they say, great, now I get to proliferate. And when it proliferates, that's where illness, sickness, disease, boils, pestilence of all kinds of manners to man happen. And so for me, this water helped take me there. I was eating a lot better, more greens and salads and chickpeas. There's a specific diet. Dr. Sebi has a diet that he calls the alkaline diet, and that was what I was doing, and taking a detox tea, and that helped. But when I started drinking this water, I drink it every day. That's where I saw a real change. Those things helped, but this is where I saw the change. And so I don't have to worry about my cycles coming up. Not the cramp, the boil. And so they went away. And I'm very happy about that, which is one reason why I'm like, anytime my patients come, they tell me, I was like, you need water, and you need good water. You don't need that water. Let me tell you why you don't need that water. And I get excited because many people don't know the difference between fortification and ionization. They just say it's what difference does it make? It's alkaline. Well, fortification, I mean, hey, they're adding and your body doesn't need all that. But ionization, you're charging the water. You're not adding to it. The liver doesn't have to think really hard. It's just like, okay, you pass. You get a hall pass, go. Any other questions? Well, I'd love to thank you guys for coming out tonight. I wasn't sure if we were going to just be talking to the angels, and we would have. But I'm happy to see your guys' faces, and I really appreciate you taking the time. I hope this was helpful for you. I hope it brought some understanding about what our bodies do sympathetically, fight and flight, parasympathetics, and why this water is so valuable, so good. Buy the bag for $10. Come get your water. Refill, refill, refill until you can afford the machine. Then buy the machine. You're welcome.